Welcome to Cluecon Weekly. Join us every Wednesday to learn about the latest cutting-edge developments in the real-time communications industry. Cluecon Weekly is brought to you by FreeSwitch Solutions. Get support and professional services directly from the creators of the FreeSwitch open source project, solving your issues in the most efficient, stable, and scalable way possible. Get the FreeSwitch advantage. Visit freeswitch.com. Also brought to you by Cluecon, the premier technology conference for developers by developers. Join us every summer in Chicago. Cluecon kicks off on Monday with our annual hackathon, The Coder Games, followed by 3 days of technology-rich presentations discussing telecom, WebRTC, and IoT from developers around the world. To learn more, visit cluecon.com or call 877-74-CLUE.
And welcome to Cluecon Weekly. Today is the 18th of July. The FreeSwitch team is getting ready to head to Cluecon, and I know you guys are too. But we're going to be doing Cluecon Weekly today anyway, so you guys stand by. We're going to have Chris Lacina from flowroute joining us. He's got some cool new information on their APIs that they've been working on that we're releasing now. Allow you to do some cool stuff with your 911 address location information and with your caller ID. So stand by for that. Before we go too much further, let's get Miss Abby in here for the news. Miss Abby, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on Cluecon Weekly. If you have any questions during the call, please comment on YouTube, chat, or IRC channels, and we will try to answer them during your call. The most important announcement is that Cluecon is in 5 days. And if you haven't registered yet, you can do so now on cluecon.com. If you are already registered, sign up for our Attendify app. Get the app on your App Store, Android, or iPhone. And if you're already registered, the Cluecon event will already be on there and you're all signed up. If you are unable to attend Cluecon, not to worry. Stay tuned for Cluecon Weekly next week, where we will be broadcasting live from Chicago. We would like to give a special thanks to SignalWire for sponsoring Cluecon this year. SignalWire is a cloud gateway that unleashes the many powerful features in FreeSwitch. A new press release and call for on signalwire.com, and check back to browse the website coming up soon. We would also like to thank our friends at OpenSIPs for sponsoring Cluecon as well. Basic FreeSwitch training and OpenSIPs training is available at Cluecon 2018, but space is limited, so be sure to register ASAP and visit the training page on Cluecon.com for more information and to register for that. Join us for all of our super fun networking events this year at Cluecon. We've got fun food and festivities by flowroute and FreeSwitch on Monday, the Gigabit reception on Tuesday, the SignalWire Bowling Bash on Wednesday, and the VoiceTel Boat Tour on Thursday. We also have a lot of exciting after parties happening at the SignalWire Lounge after all of these activities. So join us in Alpine for drinks, games, and movies. If you'd like to be a guest on Cluecon Weekly, or if you have a suggestion for videos you'd like to see, please email us at marketing@cluecon.com. And we're always continuing to add instructional videos periodically, so make sure you check in for regular updates. And as usual, be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and sign up for our mailing list to get these and even more fantastic news and announcements from the FreeSwitch team. See you all at Cluecon! Yeah! Back to you, Ken.
So we're going to jump over to Michael Malvarez here. I'm sitting here talking with a muted microphone. How about that fun stuff? Anyway, Mike, you've got a different guest for Community Corner today. What's going on, man?
We do, and so you're the guest, which I'm really excited about because I think this is the first time we've done Community Corner together, right?
I think it is. It may very well be. No, what's going on?
We have a question. I think it's actually a really relevant one. So the question came through on the mailing list from Kevin Ulbrich. And he goes, "Hi, we are currently testing Graylog 2 to merge logs from several UC nodes. In FreeSwitch, am I able to send syslog messages to a remote server instead of a file? Can we do that?"
Actually, the answer to that is yes. There's actually two different ways to do that. One, there is mod syslog for a free switch, you can use that, and that will send standard syslog messages. So it'll work with your Greylog server. It'll work with things like Splunk, or even rsyslog, or any of those mechanisms that use that. There's also Mod Greylog. Mod Greylog is a relatively new module, and I don't know how much usage it's getting out there, but you can definitely try that also. And if you find problems with it, patches are welcome. So there, you got a couple of different options there that you can use.
Right. And so how would one actually configure this?
So each one is going to have its own configuration file on where to send things. So with that, you'll want to install them. I don't know off the top of my head if they're packaged up. I know probably my Greylog is probably not packaged because it's such a new module. But with that, you install them. Look in your Etsy, if you're installing from packages, Etsy free switch autoload configs. You'll find a syslog.conf.xml file in there, or greylog.conf.xml, and adjust your servers for those and adjust your log levels that you want sent over. And just do it like you would any other logging in free switch. Whether it's mod log file or whatever you're using for the logs, and set those log levels and let it go. All logging in FreeSwitch does comply with the standard syslog log levels. Everything from alert, no logging, all the way up through debug. So you just set the appropriate level and go. Pretty straightforward.
Cool. Well, thank you, Ken.
All right.
Answers from the experts.
Yeah, and now we're going to get Chris Lacina in here with you, Michael.
Hello, Chris. How are you? So you guys, well, we got a couple of really interesting things going on today, right? So we're gonna hear about E911 and CNAM, but more importantly, there was an enormous transaction that just occurred, right? And so you want to talk about that a little bit?
Uh-oh, Chris is muted. Let's unmute him.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, we're super excited. We're in the process of going through an acquisition with West Communications. The West people have been really great. We're really looking forward to it. It's going to give us a lot more backing power and the ability to really bring our platform to the next generation. So we're super excited.
Well, that's great. And so what do you have for us today?
So what we're doing, we released our version 2 of our API last year, which has all the functionality of provisioning numbers, buying numbers, looking up things like that. Now what we're adding is the ability to manage your E911 presets as well as your CNAM presets all through the API and through all of our SDKs as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we've got customers that have tens of thousands of numbers, and trying to do that through a user interface of some sort just really doesn't work. So people have been asking for this for a long time, and we've been working on it really hard, and we finally got it out there for them.
So, what do you let's see it.
Okay, I'm going to go through a couple of slides for you first and talk about it, and then we'll go ahead and do a demo. Okay. So this is the difference between our two APIs. We just updated to version 2. Uses just basic authentication. We had a custom authentication model before that was a little clunky. The new one is just standard, straight basic authentication. All the requests and response are JSON API compliant, which makes it a lot easier for us. We've increased a lot of our filtering and searching capabilities so that you can get much more granular when you're looking for stuff. If you're trying to find specific prefixes or area codes and things like that, exchanges, that's a lot easier to find now through the API. And now with version 2, we're adding the E911 and the CNAM endpoints. So that's going to make things a lot easier for our customers. The main problem with E911 and VoIP is the fact that, VoIP phone numbers move around a lot. So, setting up the information and changing information can be problematic and is kind of error prone when you're doing everything through some sort of user interface. So we've given our users the ability to go ahead and manage all that straight through the API. Additionally, if you want to test your E911 stuff, in the past, you'd have to actually dial 911 from your VoIP phone and then ask the operator if they had time to let you test your settings. So now we've integrated with the 933 service. So when you dial 933 from your VoIP phone, it will go ahead and read back to you all the information that the E911 operator would have if you were to dial 911. So you're really able to see what's going on.
How does 911 actually work?
911, there are call centers all over the country, and when we get a call, we get 911, we go ahead and route it to the correct locale based on the information we have in the system. So that way we know that you're going to get the closest service center to wherever your location is. So there's thousands of them all over the country. So that's the way that works.
Yeah, they're PSAPs.
Yeah. So exactly. So when we get our incoming call, we trap that in the SIP stack and then go ahead and route it appropriately. Cool. So the API features are basically all your CRUD operations. You can list all your records, create records, associate them with phone numbers or DIDs. And then, of course, with a service like this, you have to make sure that the address is in the proper format. So we've got a way to actually let you validate an address with a vendor before you actually submit it. So we can make sure it's going to look okay. And like I mentioned before, we've got the 933 stuff for testing out the configuration when it's done. As I said in the beginning, all of our responses are JSON API compliant. So this is the JSON payload that we submit in order to validate or create an address. One of the things in here is this address type field. So if you're in an office building or an apartment complex or whatever, you can specify that address type. And that helps, obviously, the E911 operators and the first responders to know exactly where you are as opposed to just a straight address. And it just really helps really define in a more detailed nature where your geographic location is. Okay, I'm going to do a couple demos. I'm just going to use curl for this stuff, hitting our API, which is api.flowroute.com. This should all be standard for most of your developers should understand this kind of stuff. Standard requests. We use get, post, put, patch to link resources, and then delete to either disconnect resources, like in order to remove, say, a relationship of a E911 record from one of your DIDs, or to actually remove a resource. So first thing we're going to do is list all the records in our account. And so what we've done now is we've added this new endpoint to our current V2 of the API, E911S. So I'll just do a simple curl command on that with a get. And this will go ahead and spit back a list of records, and this is all the stuff in my account. This is also paged, so you can list records if you've got a bunch of records. You can page through them with a start, offset, and a limit, for instance. So if I had 100 records, I could page through it 10 at a time or 50 at a time. And then each of the records has a unique ID associated with it. So this is a standard REST format, and that's how you would actually access an individual record to perform an operation on it. So if you wanted to update it or associate it to a DID, that's the ID identifier you would use. Okay. Second thing we talked about was validation. So we added another endpoint to the E911S, which is a validate. You post that same JSON body to this endpoint, and it will go out to the vendor. The vendor will examine it, validate it against their database, and send us back a response. So I'm going to do that here. And you'll see here I got a 422 back. So I did something wrong. And every time there's an error in a request, we go ahead and spit back the problem either from internally or from the vendor in the JSON response. So here it's telling me that the country code has to be either US or CA for Canada, because that's all this vendor allows. And I specified a country of USA, so they rejected it. But if I fix that and try it again, it takes a little longer this time because it's doing more work on the vendor side. And now I get back a 204 no content, which means that everything was correct. So the vendor says, yes, this is a valid address, and you can go ahead and use it for E911 records. So now that I've validated my address, I want to go ahead and create it. What that's going to do is just revalidate it with the vendor and then store that record in the flowroute database. And to do that, we use the exact same payload, but we just post it to the E911S endpoint as opposed to the validate endpoint. So here's that same one, and now I get back a 201 created, which means that everything worked okay, and it's now in the system, and it spits back the new JSON payload with my new ID. So now if I want to go ahead and work with this E911 record, I've got the ID in place to reference it by. Okay, now that's great. I've got a record, but it's not associated to any of my numbers yet. So that would be the next thing we do. And the way we do relationships in our REST API is, in this case, I'm modifying the relationship on a DID. So I'm hitting the numbers endpoint, the phone number itself, and then setting its E911 relationship to my new E911 record. So here's that. This is a patch command, and we just specify the ID that I just got back from the record I had. And this goes out, and it comes back with a 204 no content, meaning everything worked okay. And now I've got that record associated with this phone number. And so now, if I was to go ahead and log into my VoIP phone with this number and dial 933, I would see all that, or would hear all that information coming back from the operator that I just submitted. It's pretty cool stuff and pretty simple. All right, that's really it for E911. Like I said, you can go through, you can list all your records, create and validate addresses, and then associate them, and of course, unassociate them from any of your DIDs. It's a lot simpler for the users now, instead of having to go through the API or go through the user interface and click and find all your buttons, find all your DIDs, and do the association. So I think the API makes things a lot faster. Any other questions about that before I get into the CNAM stuff?
You have any quick questions from the community?
All right. Well, CNAM is even simpler than E911 because there's not as much data involved. The CNAM storage is handled by Newstar. We just store the information in our database, but of course they're the ones who actually handle the caller ID portion of the system. And what we've done here is just really make things a little simpler for our users. Like I said, we have a lot of users with lots and lots of numbers, and associating CNAM records to those is much easier done in a programmatic fashion than through some sort of user interface. Similar to E911, you can go ahead, basic CRUD operations. You can list records, create them, delete them, and then of course associate or unassociate them with one of your phone numbers. Some of the limitations of CNAM records: the maximum length is 15 characters. Also, we perform a manual process to approve CNAMs. Once a day, we go ahead and look at all the submissions and manually approve them. Basically, we don't let people do things they shouldn't do, like set up a CNAM that says IRS or FBI. We just use common sense guidelines. It's nothing really strict, but it's just keeping things, keeping control of things and making sure we're not doing anything to the community that we shouldn't. But even once it's approved, it can take several days from the provider's standpoint for them to actually get that into the system, because it has to propagate out through the network. So even though it's approved by us and submitted to the vendor, it can be 3 to 5 days before it's actually functioning on your VoIP phone. Okay, this is the JSON payload for the CNAM. Much, much simpler. It's just a simple value that you set up, and this creates the record in the database. It gives you back an ID that you can then use for the association and update for your DIDs. So again, like E911, we've added a new endpoint called CNAMs to go ahead and interact with this service. So I'll show you a little bit of that. If I list all the CNAMs in my account, just by hitting that endpoint, I get back a nice JSON list. And you can see the approval dates and status of all the different records, as well as the IDs so that I can interact with them. Creating a record, again, is just that simple payload. You just do a post to the CNAM endpoint, and it'll go ahead and add it to our database. It'll validate it, first of all. One of the things in CNAM, for some reason, they have another restriction that it has to have at least one letter. So we do some of that validation up front before we pass it off to the vendor. So here, to create one, just like the E911, I do a simple post to the endpoint, and I'll get back a 201 created, which means everything went okay, and it comes back with the record with all the information in it, and then there's my new ID. I'm going to go back here real quick, and this guy. And if it's rejected for any reason, we'll go ahead and put text in there. Also, if it's rejected, you'll get an email from us with this information too, so that you can do something about it. Again, when we, just like the E911, if we want to go ahead and set the relationship up on a DID, we do that by hitting the DID endpoint and doing the association. So there's that endpoint again with one of my DIDs. I'm going to do that, and then I get back a 202 accepted, which means everything worked correctly. And now, if in a couple of days, if I call somebody from my phone, they pick it up, they'll see the caller ID that I've just set up on that number. Okay. Okay, so you guys we're not seeing the terminal. I'm sorry, I just saw that, Ken.
Yeah, I wasn't seeing your terminal. I think
Uh-oh.
slide.
That's not good. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, that's all right.
So I'm trying to share the whole screen. You not seeing anything right now?
No, I wonder if your screen share froze up.
Uh-oh. Yeah, let's see about that. That's better.
I'll tell you what. Let's see, where is it at? Why don't we, just restart screen share, and when it comes back in, we'll put you on there.
All right. Okay. Is that any better?
Give me just 1 second here. Okay, let's see. Let's try it now. Nope.
Hang on. I'll set it back up. And no. One. Nothing?
Hold on 1 second. Let's see.
Love demos. I just did this yesterday too.
We know the system works, right?
Absolutely.
It's just displaying it properly. It's way worse than a demo when all of a sudden you don't get a response, an expected response, right?
Right.
We'll blame it on we'll blame it on Malbrutus there. He's screwing with us in the background. I know he is.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, again, this is simple stuff. It's just JSON in and out. There I got a screen share. Let's see if that works. How about that? Can you see that now?
There we go. Now we can see that. Yep.
Great. Okay. So what I was showing you basically is just running through some of these simple curl commands to list and create and edit stuff. So here we just listed all the E911 records in my account with a curl command just by hitting the E911S endpoint. And it lists everything. And again, it comes back with this, as I was talking about, this ID. And that's how we access the individual records. So now if I actually hit this URL down here, it would just give me the details of this specific record. I was talking about validation a little bit.
On the E911 side, I think it was the CNAM side that we didn't actually.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, here's the list, the CNAMs that I did. Can you see that now?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And the same kind of thing. You have information about it. It tells you the approval and creation date. And if it does get rejected, there'll be a reason in here, and you'd also get an email with that. And then creating it is, like I said, really simple. The JSON is just that one key value pair. Value equals whatever you want to name the CNAM. And when that comes back, it gives you the record with the identifier in it. And then lastly, the association part, where I set it to a did. Again, we're actually we're performing a patch on the resource for the phone number itself. So we're setting the relationship for the CNAM to that ID of that CNAM record. And then that comes back with a 202, meaning everything worked okay. And now, like I said, in a couple of days, if I call somebody from this phone number, they'll see my CNAM record that I applied to this phone number.
I've got a question for you real quick on that. What's the typical lag time from changing the CNAM to actually seeing that out there on the network?
It's anywhere from 2 to 5 days, depending on the vendor. We do stuff once a day. We submit everything up to them, but it takes them a while for it to propagate through. So anyway, we tell everybody 3 to 5 days, 3 to 5 business days.
Yeah, the line information database is a real bear.
Yeah.
That's for
Yeah. So that's what we've been working on so far. We've got some other stuff coming up. We're working on a port-in API. So customers can go to port numbers now through an API or SDK rather than having to go through the user interface. That's something people have been asking for a long time, and that's going to be out sometime in Q3. And we've got a bunch of other stuff coming down the road. We're doing multi-tenants, multi-project type stuff. So we've got a lot of neat things in the works. Pretty exciting around here.
That's all cool information.
Thanks, Mike. Like I said, it's been a lot of fun. We've got a really good team here. We're just making all kinds of progress. I think we've really kind of hit our stride this last year and a half. So it's really neat to be working here and working with these guys.
So what else? Are you guys going to come into Chicago?
Yeah, some of the guys are. Our SIP, one of our senior SIP guys is going to be there, as well as some sales engineers and a couple other devs are going. But I'm not going this year, unfortunately. They've got me doing too much stuff.
No attendance at the pizza party, huh?
No, unfortunately, not for me.
But who are we going to see? Who's coming?
Dara Byrne is our head of customer service. Is going to be their customer success. Like I said, our senior SIP engineer, Julian Chavantin, is going to be there. He's a big contributor to the Camelio project. So he's going to be there, and a couple other engineers are going to be there to answer questions about the APIs. As far as William, I'm not sure what he's doing this year. I haven't talked to him in a while.
How about Sean? How's Sean? I haven't seen Sean in a while.
Since the acquisition is started, those guys haven't been involved as much anymore. So they're kind of in advisory roles. They're not in the day-to-day anymore. So I'm not sure what they're doing, honestly. They're still a big part of flowroute, but they're not in the day-to-day.
Yeah.
But it's been great working with them. The founders of flowroute are fantastic people. Even Jordan, who left over 2 years ago, has still been a constant presence in chats and emails and helping us out when we've got problems with stuff. So they're just a really good bunch of guys.
So you're working on porting APIs, huh?
Yeah. That's tough because there's just so many things so many little details you've got to worry about when you're doing a port order. Things come in and we've got to figure out which SPIDs the numbers have to go to, and they have to get split up that way. All the stuff has to get routed to the LOA, and a lot of things have been going pretty well. But we've been working on that for a while for some of our customers because it's been we've actually had it out in beta now for a couple of months for our people, and like I said, we're looking to have that out in the next quarter or so as a beta product. What we have done for the API, which I didn't show you today, there is a portability checker now. So you can submit a phone number to this API endpoint, and it'll tell you if it's able to be ported into our network or not. So that's like a first stop of the
I'm sure
porting
that's
API.
very helpful.
Yeah, let's see. A couple of things I want to show you real quick, if I can. Oh, I want to talk about the resources we've got. So along with all the API stuff that we're releasing, these are all the different links to a bunch of examples and developer docs, how to set stuff up with you guys, with FreeSwitch and Asterisk, as well as all the different SDKs and libraries we've got. So we're covering Python, PHP, .NET, Ruby, and Node. And something I would love to hear from some of your guys is, are there other languages out there that you guys think of that we haven't done anything with yet?
So what are those? Those are examples that you have that, people can just copy and paste and just, get a kickstart, right?
Right. But so we've also gone ahead, these SDKs are really high-level functions. So instead of having to put all that stuff together in a big curl statement like I did, say for E911, I can just issue a simple PHP function that says, give me all my E911 records, and it comes back with all that JSON for me without having to go through and add all the authentication and worry about everything else. That's just to make them a lot higher level and a little simpler to use if you don't want to get all the way down into the API level.
So since you have the browser open, why don't we take a look at the API documentation?
Sure.
Why don't we do that? And so you can kind of show some of the people that are watching how they can do all the different things that are available.
Okay. Can you guys see the browser okay?
Yeah.
So this is our developer portal. It's called developer.flowroute.com. We've got everything in here for the different APIs, numbers 2.0, 1.0, and 2.1. But this API, the numbers API, does all kinds of stuff. But here's the E911 endpoint, and we've got curl examples here. This shows you what I was talking about before, the way you can page through it. You've got a limit offset. Also, you can search, just show me all the ones from a specific state, for instance, because again, a lot of our larger customers have sites split all over the country. And then the various attributes come back. It's all the standard address stuff, city, state, et cetera, first name, last name. And you can also assign an alias or a label to the E911 record so you can refer to it easier, and you'll see that in your list in the user interface and in the API as well. In the end, it has the links. Each one of the payloads has the link to the resource itself, but it'll also have more links for paging. So if there's more records, it'll come back with a link called next, and you can hit that to go to the next set of records. And if you're in the middle of a big list, it's got both previous and next links to navigate through all your records. Let's see. And then for quick starts, this is just one of the guides we put together. Basically tells you how to go ahead and download all your E911 records to a CSV file. These are the kind of things we've been working on for our customers. We've had a lot of requests for this. People really seem to like it. It just makes things faster for them to get going and really dive in and start using the framework. And then for libraries, we've got the different languages we're doing stuff in. We do most of our stuff here in Python, but we've gone ahead and extended that for both Ruby, PHP, Node, and Python. Yeah. And then the last thing I want to show you guys.
Oh, so we have a question from the audience. Does flowroute support SIP trunking over TLS and SRTP? The website only mentions TCP.
That's a very good question. We are in the process right now of putting TLS in beta. That's probably going to go into beta, I think, here in the next couple of weeks. We're making some changes to the Manage UI so that you can set your routes up to use TLS. And also through the API so that you can go ahead and configure an inbound route for TLS. As for SRTP, I'm not 100% certain when that's coming out. I know it's on the roadmap, but we're not there yet. And of course, you know we're going to be at Cluecon next week. So you guys come on by and talk to us. We're doing one of the fun things on the 23rd. And then, like I said, on the 24th, Julian, who's our senior ship engineer, is going to show some of the hardware or some of the test harnesses we've built to test out our ship trunking and do a lot of stress testing on it. We do a lot of that now, and just to make sure everything works, but it's pretty neat stuff. And so if anybody is interested in checking out the porting API beta, please just go ahead and drop a line to sales at flowroute, and we'll get you hooked up with the beta, and you guys can start playing with it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you,
again,
guys.
Where do we sign up?
For the porting beta, it's just drop an email to sales@flowroute.com. And everything else is, all the other APIs and everything else is already live in production. So either go to developer.flowroute.com to look at the documentation, or go ahead and go out to flowroute.com and sign up for a trial account and start kicking the tires.
So, Chris, what other services do you offer?
Let's see. So we've got CNAM and E911. We've got the ability to do inbound and outbound routes. We blacklist, whitelist. I'm going to get in all kinds of trouble here because I'm not thinking of what else we do.
That feature where y'all can where you guys can basically hot port numbers between two different OCNs and for continuity reasons, right?
Right. That's our hyper network. Exactly. We have the ability to, like as Ken was just saying, we have the ability to hot switch carriers when there's a problem. And that's something we actually have a patent on. It's one of the big feathers in our cap for FlowRoute is that technology. And it's proven really useful over the last few years.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Now that's a lot of that stuff is pre-set up ahead of time, right? So that you guys can basically go to Impact and say, "Oh, don't put this number across partner carrier A, but go ahead and move it to partner carrier B because there's something wrong with
swapping out the SPID positions."
Whatever. Exactly. Another thing we've got is we work with a company called Fastlink who helps us with our cost routing. So we make sure that we get the highest quality and the best price for the customer on all the calls that go through. So that's a big system. It has to do with, looks up both endpoints and finds the best price and best quality carrier to go across to do that. So that's another thing we've been doing recently. We got a great sales team.
Tell us more about that.
Let's see. So we update our rates, of course, from carriers constantly. They're changing their rates all the time. So we go ahead and pass that savings down to the customer this way so that they, really get the best deal from us and get the most for their money. But we put that in, I want to say, early last year. To provide that. That's been working out really well. And of course, we've got our messaging stack for doing SMS and MMS with custom callbacks. So for each SMS you receive, you can have a custom URL hit to notify you. Also for MMS, we support both of those now. Correct. DLR is right. One of the other things we're adding here in the next quarter, I think, is another new API to download and pull all your CDRs from the system. That's something a lot of the customers want. Right now, you have to download it through the user interface. So that's just one more thing as we go forward. We're really trying to pull everything you can do in the manage interface. We want to be able to provide via API.
That's cool.
I got a question here. So it's my understanding that when you have one, let's say one flowroute account, and you're using SIP registration to pass calls, like you can basically only register like a single free switch to a single account if you're using SIP registration. Is that correct? Yeah, I've mostly been using the IP authentication to get various DIDs,
Right.
various free switches.
I think that's correct. Yeah, that's one of the reasons we offered the IP authentication mechanism, is so that you can have multiple DIDs on a single system. But I believe that is correct. Yes. But if you want, I'll go ahead and ask one of my guys, and we can find out for sure, and I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, I mean, there was a customer actually. I brought that up to a customer too, saying, hey, if you were going the SIP registration route, you'd actually have to have two accounts if you're trying to get two different DIDs to two different free switches via SIP registration.
Right, I see that, because you would need I would have to use the IP, because otherwise it all goes to the same spot. Something else we've added recently, I don't think we've talked about this yet, but we've also added a bunch of new points of presence, new POPs around the country. So now, depending on your location, instead of hitting what used to be our main servers, which were in Nevada, we've got servers in Washington, in Seattle. We've got them in New Jersey. We've got stuff in Oregon and in North Virginia. And we're going to be adding more of those as we go along too. So that goes ahead and reduces latency. So when you guys are making outbound calls, you hit the closest server as opposed to just hitting the ones that we used to have in Nevada.
So tell us more about your network.
All right. Okay. So our main setup, most of our stuff is running in AWS. We have a few other servers, like I said, around the country that we work with. We take advantage of quite a few of the AWS technologies to keep our systems up and running, with failovers, of course, in different locations. Let's see. As I think I told you guys, we use Camelio as our main SIP trunk router. We've had a lot of success with that, and we're running the latest and greatest versions of that. And we're actually a big contributor to the Camelio community. We've done a lot with that over the last few years. But for the most part, yeah, that's we have relationships with all the major carriers in the country, and we're now looking at hopefully branching out into international traffic here sometime next year.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you guys for having us.
It's always good. It's always good to have you on the show, and more than anything else, thank you for being a sponsor.
Absolutely. We really love FreeSwitch, and I know you guys are gonna have a great Cluecon.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to you, Ken.
All right, cool. Hey, Chris, thanks for coming in and joining us today. We greatly appreciate that. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming up, with FreeSwitch and with Cluecon coming right around the corner. You guys will be learning more about, some of the new stuff that the guys are working on. So you definitely don't want to forget that for next week. We've got a lot of cool stuff going on. Don't forget, next week we will be broadcasting live from Cluecon. So if you're there at Cluecon, you'll be able to, get your questions answered by the guys and some stuff that we're working on there. Plus, we'll be broadcasting that live right here on Cluecon Weekly. And so I think it'll be, let's see here.
We're going to have a panel.
Yeah, we're going to have a panel. I think it's what the entire core team is going to be on there, on that panel. Right, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you want to know what's going on with FreeSwitch, what's coming up, and be here, watch us next week. We'll be back here Wednesday at noon Central Time. So don't forget to join us then. Chris, again, thank you for coming out and joining us today, telling us what's going on with flowroute. If you guys need some SIP trunking, check out flowroute.com. They've got really good prices. I've used them personally for years. They're not paying me to say that. And I actually like the services. Their web interfaces and APIs are really easy to use. So go check them out on that. And we'll be back here next week. A reminder, don't forget, guys, right below the video is the subscribe button. Click that. And then you'll have a little bell light up next to that. Click that. That'll get you the alerts on when we post new videos and let you know when we're going live again. So do that. And it also helps us out because it gets more viewers for us that way. YouTube helps us promote it better. Anyway, thanks, guys. And y'all have a good week. And we'll see you in Chicago.
You've been watching Cluecon Weekly. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central. Keep up with the latest happenings by subscribing to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or visit us at freeswitch.com.
And we're clear. Oh, come on. Me and this UI going to fight today. My browser be able to